Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Jennifer Jones, a complex star of Hollywood's golden age, early influences and identity formation. Born Phylis Lee Isley in 1919, Jennifer Jones was not an overnight star, but a carefully sculpted persona. Her transformation under the guidance of producer David O. Selznick is a striking example of the studio system's power to craft and mold identity. Selznick saw in her a unique mixture of spiritual purity and repressed passion, a combination that would define many of her most iconic roles. Her real-life roots in the American Midwest and background in theater gave her a groundedness, which contrasted with the ethereal quality she brought to the screen. Clapperboard acting style in iconic roles. Jennifer Jones's acting is often characterized by emotional intensity, vulnerability, and a haunting grace. She had a distinctive way of conveying inner conflict, eyes brimming with feeling, her voice soft but steady. Some of her most notable roles include The Song of Bernadette, 1943, as Bernadette Subaru. She played a French peasant girl who experiences visions of the Virgin Mary. Her performance was luminous and deeply sincere, earning her an Oscar for Best Actress. Since You Went Away, 1944, a home-front World War II drama where she played a young woman navigating love and loss during wartime. It was her first film with Robert Walker after their real-life separation, adding emotional realism to their scenes. Duel in the Sunday, 1946, a torrid Western drama where Jones shocked audiences with her sensual portrayal of a woman torn between two brothers. It was controversial at the time and earned her the nickname, the Technicolor Harlot. Portrait of Jenny, 1948, a mystical romance and one of the earliest films to experiment with color as a storytelling tool. Her performance contributed to the film's dreamy, surreal atmosphere. Love is a Many-Splendored Thing, 1955, playing a Eurasian doctor in 1950s Hong Kong. Jones brought grace and dignity to a role that explored racism, identity, and forbidden love. Brain inner struggles and psychological depth. Despite her success, Jones struggled deeply with mental health issues, including depression. Her daughter, Mary Jennifer Selznick, tragically died by suicide in 1976, an event that profoundly affected her. Jennifer herself attempted suicide in 1967, after years of emotional turmoil and pressure to uphold a carefully curated public image. These inner battles lent her performances an edge of truth. There was often a fragility and desperation in her characters, somewhat reflective of her own insecurities. She did not have the public persona of confidence like Bette Davis or Katharine Hepburn. Instead, she embodied emotional realism, often playing women who were at odds with their environments or struggling to find peace. Heartbreak, relationships, and reputation. Her marriage to Robert Walker was turbulent, ending when her relationship with David O. Selznick blossomed. Selznick was famously controlling, not only over her career but her personal life. Some biographers argue that he saw her as a muse, someone to perfect and protect, while also exerting total influence over her. Hollywood insiders at the time often viewed Jones as aloof or mysterious. She rarely gave interviews and was intensely private, fueling speculation and misunderstanding. Her complex image, sweet on-screen, distant off-screen, only added to her mystique. Paint palette. Later years and cultural impact. After Selznick's death, Jones withdrew from public life, later marrying Norton Simon, a wealthy industrialist and art collector. Through her work with the Norton Simon Museum, she shifted her energies toward philanthropy and mental health advocacy, especially after her daughter's death. In many ways, Jennifer Jones bridged the era of spiritual heroines like Ingrid Bergman and the psychological intensity of actresses like Gena Rowlands. She may not have become a household name in the way of Hepburn or Monroe, but she was a quiet revolutionary, bringing sincerity, darkness, and emotional complexity to roles that could have been one-dimensional. Film Frame's legacy. Jennifer Jones remains a unique figure in American cinema, a woman whose life was shaped by love, loss, and reinvention. Her films, particularly The Song of Bernadette and Portrait of Jenny, are still studied for their spiritual undertones and emotional power. Her legacy also lives on in the dialogue about mental health in Hollywood. Quietly and without fanfare, she opened a path for actors and public figures to speak more honestly about emotional pain and survival. Reinvention. Under David O. Selznick, few actresses in classic Hollywood were so completely rebranded as Jones was. Selznick's discovery of her was not merely a professional turning point, it was almost mythological. She was a virtual unknown when he cast her in The Song of Bernadette. Her transformation from Phylis Isley into Jennifer Jones represented the studio system at its height, powerful, invasive, and capable of constructing lasting legends. Selznick didn't just change her name, he oversaw every aspect of her career, from her appearance and public image to the scripts she read. Their obsessive romantic and professional relationship became part of her mythos, much like Norma Shear's relationship with Irving Thalberg. Yet while Selznick gave her roles that showcased her range, his dominance likely contributed to her sense of isolation. David wanted to build a legend. I wanted to live. Jones, privately to a friend in the 1950s, reported posthumously, Movie Camera deep dive into her signature films. Here's a closer examination of some of her landmark performances, beyond the surface acclaim. Wave. Portrait of Jenny, 1948, a haunting love story told across time. The film was a box office disappointment but became a cult classic, with Jones's ghostly performance being central to its ethereal charm. She seemed to embody something not quite earthly, which mirrored her own inner detachment from Hollywood. Fire Duel in the Sunday, 1946, nicknamed Lust in the Dust, this Selznick-produced epic cast Jones as Pearl Chavez, a mixed-race woman torn between repression and wild desire. The performance was ahead of its time, raw, sexual, and tragic. Though censored and criticized, Jones's fearless portrayal pushed boundaries for female characters on-screen. Heartbreak Carrie, 1952, a lesser-remembered adaptation of Theodore Dreiser's Sister Carrie, in which Jones played a small-town girl corrupted by the big city. Her performance here is subdued, internal, and layered, anticipating a more modern, psychologically realistic style of acting that would emerge in the 1950s and 60s. Crown. An actress of contradiction. Jennifer Jones was never fully comfortable with fame. She avoided the Hollywood social scene, didn't cultivate a fanbase, and rarely gave interviews. Her acting method, intuitive and instinctive, clashed with the calculated way she was marketed. This made her feel caught between two identities, the muse and the woman. Her beauty was often cited as one of her defining features, but she seemed ambivalent about it. She didn't trade on glamour like contemporaries such as Lana Turner or Rita Hayworth. Her allure came from the emotional tension in her performances. She could tremble on the edge of a breakdown, then recover with strength. Heartbreak, tragedy, and withdrawal. After Selznick's death, Jones's life turned increasingly private and introspective. Her suicide attempt in 1967 revealed just how strained her mental health had become. After the death of her daughter in 1976, she focused her energy on mental health advocacy, helping found the Jennifer Jones Simon Foundation for Mental Health and Education, a rare step for a former Hollywood star in that era. Her marriage to Norton Simon brought stability. In later life, she was often seen quietly attending art events in Pasadena, a ghost of old Hollywood, yet still radiating an elusive elegance. Film projector influence on future generations. Jennifer Jones doesn't often top modern greatest actress lists, but her stylistic impact is felt in generations of actresses who brought interiority and brokenness to their roles. Her work prefigures Meryl Streep, the emotional precision Julianne Moore, the fragility masked by poise Jessica Chastain, the spiritual yearning Cate Blanchett, the blend of aloofness and emotional transparency. Her subtlety and sincerity had a European quality unusual in 1940s Hollywood, which often preferred grand gestures and theatricality. Rose's legacy and rediscovery in death, Jones has become something of a cinematic specter, not as visible as her peers but deeply intriguing. A growing number of film critics and cinephiles have rediscovered her through retrospectives and restorations. Films like Portrait of Jenny and Love Letters have been reassessed not just for their romance but for the emotional truth she brought to otherwise melodramatic material. Her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame is modest, tucked away, much like the woman herself. Candle final thought: Jennifer Jones was not a typical star, nor did she want to be. Her work remains unforgettable not because she courted fame, but because she poured her haunted soul into every frame. Beneath the image of the saint and the siren was a real, wounded, searching woman. That truth, flickering, painful, transcendent, is what makes her legacy immortal. Jennifer Jones, the woman behind the legend. A sense of otherness. Many actresses in the golden age could be categorized: bombshell, girl next door, grande dame, but Jennifer Jones never quite fit any mold. She often radiated a kind of outsider energy, as if she were simultaneously part of and apart from the worlds she inhabited. Whether playing a suffering saint, a tragic romantic, or a tormented femme fatale, she imbued her roles with a dreamlike reserve, as though watching life from a distance. Contemporaries and film historians have noted that her performances feel almost private. You don't watch Jones act, you witness her internal storm. She could stand still and make you feel every beat of her heartbreaking. Joseph Cotten, her frequent co-star love letter relationship with Robert Walker. Hollywood's quiet tragedy. Her marriage to actor Robert Walker is one of classic Hollywood's most unspoken tragedies. They met at drama school, married young, and had 2 sons. But as Jones's star began to rise, and as Selznick took control of her career, and eventually her life, the marriage fell apart. The emotional trauma lingered for both. Notably, in Since You Went Away, 1944, they played young lovers despite being newly divorced in real life. Their scenes together carry a heartbreaking tension, a kind of sadness only real heartbreak can produce. Walker later suffered a mental breakdown and died tragically young in 1951. Friends close to Jones said she never spoke of him again publicly, but privately carried deep guilt. Paint palette: the Selznick years. Pygmalion and Galatea. The producer David O. Selznick was both her mentor and her Svengali. He groomed her for stardom with almost obsessive focus. While he gave her prestige and opportunity, he also exerted suffocating control. He chose her roles, coached her acting, controlled her wardrobe, and micromanaged her public image. Their relationship was passionate, volatile, and defined by codependence. He once delayed a major film shoot for weeks because Jones was too emotionally fragile to perform. But she also remained loyal to him until his death in 1965. In many ways, she was his greatest production. But that came at a cost: her autonomy, her confidence, and perhaps her peace of mind. Flower Petal: the elusiveness of stardom. Unlike many of her peers, Jennifer Jones never embraced celebrity. She seemed deeply uncomfortable in the spotlight. She rarely granted interviews, avoided premieres when possible, and loathed being photographed in public. This mystery added to her legend. To this day, there are surprisingly few candid images or personal accounts of Jones beyond what her films and those close to her reveal. As biographer Paul Green noted, Jones became famous by being distant. She seduced the audience with emotion but denied them her persona. She was Hollywood royalty who refused the throne. Woman in lotus position. Later years, silence, solitude, and healing. After Selznick's death, Jones endured a dark period, including a suicide attempt in 1967. This coincided with her slow retreat from acting. In 1971, she married Norton Simon, a billionaire industrialist and art collector, and withdrew almost entirely from public life. This second marriage offered Jones stability, privacy, and a new purpose. As the curator and guardian of the Norton Simon Museum, she immersed herself in the arts, surrounding herself with classic works by Degas, Rembrandt, and Van Gogh, figures whose themes of suffering and beauty may have mirrored her own inner life. Following her daughter's suicide in 1976, Jones became a quiet advocate for mental health, helping launch the Jennifer Jones Simon Foundation for Mental Health and Education. Unlike many stars of her era, she transformed her personal pain into a legacy of compassion and support for others. Military medal honors and recognition. Despite being one of the few actresses to receive 5 Academy Award nominations by the mid-1950s, Jennifer Jones has long been an under-celebrated figure in Hollywood retrospectives. Some reasons include her small, selective filmography, only about 25 films, her avoidance of press and absence from the social Hollywood scene, her subtle, often internal performances not as quotable or flashy as some peers. Still, she was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame and has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. A number of film scholars now cite her as a precursor to modern acting styles, especially in the way she fused vulnerability with restrained power. Books rediscovering Jennifer Jones. Today, modern viewers are beginning to reevaluate her work, especially as we reappraise actresses who defied easy categorization. She is a favorite among cinephiles, directors, and actors who admire the emotional texture she brought to her characters. Recommended modern entry points: The Song of Bernadette, for spiritual gravitas, an old Hollywood beauty portrait of Jenny, for atmospheric romance and artful visuals. Duel in the Sun, for raw sexuality and emotional chaos. Love Is a Many-Splendored Thing, for graceful melodrama with depth. Carrie, 1952, for underappreciated realism and social critique. Sparkle's Conclusion. The eternal muse Jennifer Jones was not made for Hollywood, Hollywood made her. But despite that, she carved something singular and sacred from the raw materials of her life. She embodied contradictions, intimate yet distant, controlled yet volcanic, beloved yet hidden. Her legacy is not one of fame, but of feeling. Of a woman whose inner life spoke louder than any studio-crafted image. And in that quiet rebellion, she became one of cinema's most enduring enigmas. Jennifer Jones. Hollywood's dream in mourning. Jennifer Jones's screen presence wasn't merely beautiful, it was haunted. Her performances seemed to echo from the shadows of trauma, faith, desire, and identity. She didn't just act, she seemed to channel something ancient and aching, like a spirit momentarily borrowing a body. Face mask. Emotional grammar. How she acted without acting. Jones's acting style was pre-method, but it often carried the same psychological realism later popularized by actors like Montgomery Clift and Joanne Woodward. While others of her era spoke in grand cadences or performative gestures, Jones communicated with silence, tremor, and stillness. She gave space to emotion rather than crowding it with expression. She wasn't flashy. She didn't steal scenes. She absorbed them until they glowed with something uncanny. She had a rare ability to make quiet agony cinematic. Martin Scorsese, who praised Portrait of Jenny as mystic poetry, Fogg characters as reflections of self. Jones's most celebrated roles are studies in women on the brink, emotionally, spiritually, or sexually. In The Song of Bernadette, she's pure faith battling skepticism. In Love Letters, 1945, she plays a woman with amnesia and a buried past, a metaphor for repression. In Gone to Earth, 1950, directed by Powell and Pressburger, she is untamed nature, hunted and destroyed by social expectation. In Ruby Gentry, 1952, she is wounded sensuality, cast aside by class prejudice and revenge. These characters shared a fractured interiority, and all are suffused with the suggestion of spiritual violence. Her heroines often seem like they were not meant for this world, too soft, too strange, or too scarred to survive it. Puzzle piece: the puzzle of public absence. Jennifer Jones never became a pop icon like Marilyn Monroe, nor a feminist symbol like Katharine Hepburn. She didn't give talk shows, write memoirs, or reinvent herself for television. And yet, her absence became part of her legacy. Her silence after 1974's The Towering Inferno made her one of the last great disappearing acts in Hollywood. This retreat amplified the aura of mystique around her, a woman who lived through Hollywood's peak but refused its spotlight, even after surviving it. In a media-saturated age, Jones's refusal to self-explain has become radical. She let the work speak. And it does. Camera iconography. Her visual identity: Jones had a face that directors loved to frame in soft light and emotional ambiguity. She looked different depending on the lighting, lens, or mood, as Bernadette, glowing, transcendent, with a childlike reverence; as Pearl Chavez, burning with repressed sexuality, photographed like a fever dream; as Jenny, out of focus, like a memory you can't quite hold. In many ways, Jones was cinema's ultimate projection surface, a mirror for fantasy, spirituality, and pain. That's why so many of her films veer into mysticism or melodrama, genres where emotion transcends realism. Brain mental health. An unspoken battle. Jones's struggles with depression, anxiety, and grief were largely hidden during her lifetime, but they shaped her entire life and art. She attempted suicide in 1967, and her daughter's death in 1976 profoundly marked her remaining years. At a time when mental illness was taboo, Jones quietly became a pioneer in mental health advocacy. She co-founded the Jennifer Jones Simon Foundation for Mental Health and Education, seeking to prevent suicides and expand emotional education. This part of her life is rarely publicized, but it's perhaps her most humane legacy, using pain to heal others. Film projector: modern relevance. The precursor to today's anti-heroines in an era that now embraces complicated, fractured female leads. Think Mare of Easttown, Euphoria, Tar, Past Lives. Jones's body of work has become eerily prescient. She anticipated characters who aren't perfect, likable, or empowered, but who feel real. She created space for characters to be saintly without perfection, sexual without control, strong without hardness, damaged without spectacle. In this sense, Jones was decades ahead of her time. Why she matters now. Jennifer Jones's relevance in 2025 is not nostalgic, it's visionary. She reflects a deeper truth about what it means to live with trauma, desire, and contradictions. Her performances offer emotional X-rays of people trying to live in a world that doesn't understand them. Her characters are the women before feminism had language, before therapy had reach, before mental illness had visibility, and she gave them voice with compassion and dignity. End final reflection. Jones once said, quietly and without self-pity. There are no guarantees that any of it will make sense. You just try to keep the flame lit. She did just that. Through turbulent marriages, staggering grief, a sculpted identity she never asked for, and a soul that seemed to hover just outside this world, she kept the flame lit. Jennifer Jones was not built to be famous. She was built to feel. And in that, she became something far rarer, immortal. Jennifer Jones, cinema's fragile icon of endurance. Jennifer Jones is not merely remembered for her roles, she is felt.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching.